All right, let me call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is a regularly called and scheduled Greer City Council meeting. We are convening tonight on September the 9th, 2014. Being duly assembled and called to order, I would like to ask Councilwoman Kimberly Bookert, if she would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then our invocation. If you will stand and join us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Lord, we come before you right now as humble as we know how. Again, saying thank you for this beautiful day you've blessed us with. Thank you for our life, our health, our strength. God, we ask that you bless this meeting. Let nothing be said or done that's not in your will. God, allow no person to be glorified above you. And it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We open our meetings with a public forum, an opportunity to speak to those items in regards to agenda items that will be coming up this evening. Ms. Duncan, do we have anybody to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that then, council, we'll move to the minutes of the council meeting from the August 26th meeting. You have those in your packet. I'll entertain a motion they be received.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. With that then, we'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. A couple of items, a couple of agenda items, calendar items for us to make you aware of first. Coming up on Thursday, September 25th, will be our annual Employee Benefits Fair. You should have received some information concerning that as well. We'll be having that here on our campus. It'll take place from 7:30 in the morning until 2:30. The annual benefits fair is an opportunity for us to each year to provide flu shots for our employees, for those folks that choose to do that. We also have an opportunity to take several of the blood tests that folks are able to do for their cholesterol and blood sugar levels and those types of things. It allows us an opportunity to collect that information on their behalf so that they can use that as they are preparing to make some decisions relative to the wellness program. As we reported earlier, we will be making some revisions to that program beginning January the 1st, but we will be entering open enrollment in October. So the benefits fair is a great opportunity for us to get re-familiar with some of the things that we are providing emphasis to, as well as education for our employees. So again, we hope that you are planning to join us on that day. It'll begin from 7:30 until 2:30 in the afternoon. That is on Thursday, September 25th, and will involve all of our employees citywide. We are a guest of and a co-sponsor of Industry Appreciation event that we are working with Greer Development Corporation on. Again, you should have received some information on that program. It'll be held that same day on Thursday, September 25th. So I do hope that you come in early that morning, get all your blood work done, because at lunchtime you're going to have barbecue. But it is a wonderful opportunity for us to visit with many of our industry-based companies here in the city of Greer. We are glad to co-sponsor that event with Greer Development Corporation, and that will be at noon on that Thursday as well, September 25th. And for your calendars, we also ask that you go ahead and mark Friday, October the 10th. That is the date of our annual Employee Safety Breakfast. We will be recognizing safety efforts of our employees during this past year. It's a grand opportunity for us to gather all of our employees. We look forward to that each year. This is an emphasis on our safety program, and we will be recognizing that as part of that day as well. So again, Friday, October the 10th, we'll be having that event here on this campus again. So certainly ask that you mark those items on your calendars. As a matter of things that are continuing for us, we are working with our consultant group on our classification and compensation study. We are well into that program. We reported some information on that previously. Our employees are now completing what's called the job assessment tool. So they are identifying their duties, responsibilities, the tasks that they have responsibility for. As we compile that data, it'll be part of the overall analysis and study that our consultants will be bringing back to us. I'll be reviewing that material at the latter part of this year, and then we will be bringing information to council as part of your strategic planning session, the early part of 2015, results of that study as well. But well into that program moving forward. Just as a matter of information, I do want to make you aware that both Mr. Sell and I will be attending the International City and County Management Association Conference this year. We have an opportunity for both of us to participate because it's in Charlotte. So it's going to be very easy for us to get over for that conference. Mike will be going up on Saturday. He's participating in several workshops on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be going in a little bit later on Sunday, and he and I both will be there through midday on that Wednesday. But that is next week, and we'll be participating with about 3,000 of our colleagues from around the world who will be gathering in Charlotte, again, for the International City and County Management Association Annual Conference. Our community master plan is moving forward. We are meeting by telephone at least weekly with the consultants on that program as well. They are scheduled to be back in our community on September 23rd. Several of you are involved in some of the groups that meet with them. They'll be providing some additional feedback and reporting back to us on that September 23rd date as well. So we're looking forward to getting Kimlinghorn back in to report on their activity. Again, we meet with them by telephone conference every Tuesday, every other Tuesday. We meet on the same date the council meets, and we do that by telephone about 4 o'clock in the afternoon to make sure that everything is moving forward on that program. And we're very, very glad to report that we are on schedule as we would hope to be at this point in time. And last but not least, want to make you aware that as we start to prepare for your annual planning retreat that will take place in early 2015, what we call our leadership team, our department heads, and some of our key managers will be meeting in a staff retreat here in Greer. We'll be on site doing that meeting, and that'll be in late October as we start to prepare for your meeting again in early 2015. Those are the items that I needed to bring council this evening. I would ask council's consideration of 2 items in executive session. There may be other items from members of council, but I would be requesting 1 contractual and 1 personnel in executive session. Happy to answer any questions, provided any additional feedback.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions for the administrator.
All right.
Has our financial department or Reno and his group seen any kind of slowing in growth or our revenues as they've been coming in? And the reason I ask that is in today's GSA, there's a article, and the headline is "State Budget Data Shows Slowing Growth." I didn't know if we're seeing some of the same data that they are seeing.
No, actually, our year-to-date is at about 38 million compared to last year at about 34 million at the same time. So we are tracking really well, and there were a couple of larger type projects last year, so we feel very confident of where we are. The reviews that we have in our pipeline, the things that we are looking that have come to us and said that they either anticipate moving forward in 2014, 2015, that's been very healthy for us. So we don't see that, but that doesn't mean that there could not be some effects that we could experience moving forward, but it's not something that we're seeing either on the housing side or on the commercial development side at this point. I would have to ask Mr. Deaton to speak personally to what he's seeing as far as activity on economic development, but not on what is coming to fruition once it gets to us.
Okay. The other item has to do with our budget. I believe that we I forget the amount, but we've budgeted dollars for lighting and some development in downtown, and that's the way I understand it, that's to be at council's discretion or with council's help.
Correct.
Okay. Where does that stand? Do we need to be, does council need to be helping?
Absolutely. If you're speaking to the $500,000 commitment that we made to Greer Station over 5 years, we allocated $30,000 in the first year, and that was our last fiscal year. We've ramped that up. It's a 5-year ramp-up program for us to attain that $500,000 over the 5-year period. We would anticipate that we would be adding to that as well, as we would look at doing street resurfacing in the downtown area as well. Mr. Holloman has been working or starting to plan that process of what we would need to mill, what needs to be resurfaced, what type of sidewalk work needs to happen in that area as well. The only thing that we have made any firm commitments and moved forward on is the project that's taking place right now, and that's the re-landscaping on Trade Street. That was a very modest program, and we made a decision to do that out of last year's funds, even though we're doing the work now. Unlike some of our budgeted funds that if they're not allocated, they would be then redesignated back into our fund balance. In this project, because they were designated for it, we hold those out and we earmark those only to be used for that program. Those are restricted to what is Greer Station, the downtown area. More specifically, we have some additional funds that we have been also setting aside on a year-to-year basis relative to gateways, and those dollars are restricted as well. We were doing $10,000 a year on that. We now have 2 years that have been accumulated, and we're in our 3rd year. So there would be about $30,000 available to us for some gateway work as we continue to move forward. And it certainly is feasible that of that $500,000, if we're looking to do something in the downtown area or the approach to downtown, that some of those funds could be used for that purpose as well.
Okay, so, but you and staff are looking for input.
Oh, absolutely. We would want input from our elected officials relative to that, and we would ask for input from our merchants in Greer Station as well as far as establishing priorities. But as we designated those $500,000, while we committed that to be used in Greer Station, we were very clear that those funds are at the discretion of the city for its ultimate use. We're not making that as a contribution to Greer Station Association or Greer Development Association. Those are funds that we're designating. We may administer those funds through them, but the decisions relative, the ultimate decision of how those funds are used rests with the city. Yes.
So have we done any active, taken any active role as far as what we're going to do as far as gateways? I mean, have we targeted where we want to do that, or have we looked into some expense?
There's been a lot of work over the years on gateways. Gateways have been in our planning process for as long as I've been here. It's been a priority for Partnership for Tomorrow. It's identified in their program of work and is a priority for them. Over the years, there have been some designs that have been submitted. Some of those have been considered, while others have been rejected for various reasons. There has been identification, and again, this has all been through Partnership for Tomorrow work, not necessarily through the city, but the partnership has identified areas that would be potential locations for that type of signage as well. We have identified also in our program of work with Kimley Horn as part of our community master plan that the corridors and entrances to the city, that is indeed part of what we've asked them very specific to assist us with. One of those that would be more detailed would be Wade Hampton Boulevard, and another would be the approach to downtown off of Highway 14, most specifically the bridge area as we would approach into downtown. Those are the two those are really the east and west entrances to the city on Wade Hampton and 14, and we would imagine that as part of their work for the Victor approach on Highway 101 that we would anticipate that as well. And there's been some additional work that Mayor Danner and I have been involved in that we have designated beautification funds on Highway 101 and I-85, that would be an area that signage would be a part of that project as well. So I guess east-west on Wade Hampton, the approach of 14 at the bridge, and 101 and 85 are the ones that have been identified.
Something else that we never did do, and this has been 4 or 5 years ago, when we had I believe it was at the Presbyterian Church, there was some work done, and it culminated in some signage for neighborhoods that I thought was a real good idea. It took Victor, and it took where you and I live and all that. And I think if we could wrap that into it also somehow, I think identifying our neighborhoods like that would also be a good one.
That was part of a charrette process that
Yeah.
was it was the AIA
Yeah, 50, yeah.
the 50th anniversary project that they came in and did some work. They selected our community. Mayor Danner was heavily involved in that.
There were some impressive results.
They did some really
and
good
it would
work
really
with
be
that
nice.
to show how you can identify, particularly with some signage designating areas of your city that are more identifiable by neighborhoods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we could include some of that, cost-wise, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and that may be something as we move more into this process of looking at where we would want to do either wayfinding or gateway signage, because I certainly believe that wayfinding signage will be part of the package that we will get from Kimley Horn for the downtown area. We see that that's a very common occurrence in revitalization projects in downtown areas, so I'm certainly expecting that wayfinding signage will be part of that. This could be an expansion of that as we kind of take that into neighborhoods.
Since Mr. Bettis mentioned that, maybe we could, if we could incorporate this as well. I had mentioned a couple of council meetings back that at some point staff bring some information so we can have a discussion about doing some maintenance or taking over some state roads. And some of those state roads would be perfect if we took them over and used them as either neighborhood gateways or main gateways coming in. Some of the space is already there. It's just, and I think the time now is right to start at least discussing that and incorporating everything that we're doing at this point.
And that would certainly be something we would just need to get some direction, and I think that's what you're trying to provide to us, so we would welcome that opportunity.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. With that then, we'll move on to appointments of boards and commissions. We do have an opening in District 3 on the Planning Commission. Morris Burton has resigned after many years of service, and we certainly want to recognize Mr. Burton's service at some point in time, and we'll do that. Any nominations at this point?
Not as of yet. We do
Okay.
have Al coming in though.
With that then, we will move to items of old business. You'll find the first item of old business, the first reading of ordinance number 21-2014. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer zoning code, Article 6, general provisions to add Section 613, storage, including the purpose and intent definitions, conflicts, and penalties of such. Mr. Pace, you want to bring us up to speed on anything new or old about this? We have gotten to the point that we had some discussion last week, decided to hold this ordinance over, and so we are back again. So.
We're just waiting for information from you guys, and we're ready to move forward with this if you are. And again, I know you may have some amendments to recommend here today for text change for the ordinance.
Okay. If you will stay close then, what we will do is I'll entertain a motion in a second. At that point, the floor will be open for discussion. I would imagine, having talked to several of you, that there may be questions and recommendations for amendments. I think it's probably best for us to entertain all of those as best we can at one point in time, and then that will give me a better idea of how many amendments that we may need to deal with. I suspect, given that we may have multiple amendments, that it will be best if we deal with those individually, but we will see as we move along in this discussion. So if you'll stay close, Mr. Pace, we'll get the discussion started and go from there. How about that? I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, floor is open for discussion in regards to 2014.
Mr. Mayor, as far as amendments, I have, well, first, let me back up. I am in support of this ordinance, and I understand the reasoning why we need to have it in place. The amendments that I want to propose just seem to tie up some loose ends.
Okay.
And close some things that are kind of left open. How do we need to proceed forward? Because I have a laundry list of things that I think that need to be changed and placed in as an amendment. Or are we going to take each one of these separately, or?
Well, I think we may have to vote on them separately. You're welcome to kick the discussion off, and if you want to go ahead and we'll go through those amendments you'd like to offer. It may trigger questions or comments by other council members, and
Okay.
we'll go from there, and then we'll revisit based on our discussion whether or not we need to handle all of the all the amendments separately.
Okay.
All right?
Under the general section, 613.3, the first item is F. That is, storage structures shall not store material considered to be hazardous according to the most current edition of the International Fire Code. I have a question more than an amendment. Does that either need to be deleted and just refer directly to the fire code only, or does that need to be defined? Just what is hazardous? Glenn?
You asked me a question. Again, and Ruthie may know a little more about the fire code than what I do, but the current edition of the fire code, I think, has a list of hazardous materials and how they have to be dealt with. And that's what we were implying here, that they not be not stored in these type of containers.
Well, that would be gasoline, right? Would be one of those.
Well, first of all, this is not just a container. This would be storage facilities, whether they're built or whether it's a storage container.
If they do.
Correct?
I'm looking at storage structure as it, well, wait a minute, let me back up. Yes, sir. As
Okay.
it says here, storage structure.
Right, because it's under the general section.
Right.
So, what I don't want to leave open is that for anybody to be at random say, well, this 5-gallon can of gas is hazardous, therefore you can't have it. Does the fire code identify what kind of quantity and what kind of material can't be stored?
Again, in my conversations with the fire marshal, Scott Keeley, they are identifiable. 5 gallons of gas in a proper container would not be considered hazardous as long as it's stored in its proper container. But you start getting bulk items of the listed items, then that's when you start having issues.
And that's my question. The fire code defines all of that.
Yes, as far as my understanding from Mr. Keeley, yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
Ruthie, do you have additional information on that? That'd be helpful.
That can also include batteries or tires. The fire code addresses all of the hazardous materials and what is allowable to the amounts.
Okay.
so a material stored in a proper container would not be considered hazardous?
Not for gasoline. It is the 5 gallon as long as it's in an approved container.
What about something like acetone, if it's in a proper container?
If it's in a proper container and it may require ventilation, but the quantities are limited per the fire code. We have nail salons that have to have flame-proof cabinets that are ventilated to the outside because of the amount of materials that they choose to store.
And I'm more concerned on the residential side of it. That's where I'm coming from
Right.
Okay.
Well, again, with residential, we're not gonna be able to inspect
That's where you're
that.
gonna find 5-gallon gas and gallons of
Well,
acetone and
exactly.
paint thinner. and-
Well, that's why I'm asking this question. If it's already in the fire code, fine. I just don't want it to be a random thing. Follow me? Item H, I think that sentence needs to be deleted because there's no way you can place anything on a parcel of land and not affect the drainage.
What about if you just insert the word negatively after not?
That leaves it up to whose definition of negative we're going to follow.
Okay, we're assuming the intent is that this is to prevent the structure from creating a problem that doesn't exist before the structure goes on the property. That's basically what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
So,
And it can't do that now anyway, right? Under a permitted building, you can't change the flow of water to negatively impact another, right?
Correct.
Okay, so then we probably just need to delete that. I would propose that we delete that.
Let me back up one, if you don't mind, Jay.
Okay.
G, storage structure shall not possess wheels, axles that would potentially make the container mobile. You know, it's not uncommon commercially for businesses to put a tractor trailer on site for a period of time. Is that allowed?
Again, it's not becoming a structure. If it still has the wheels in it and all this, then it is a mobile device that they use.
As long as it could be moved out in a moment's
Right.
notice.
And in most cases where it is used in those manners, another one is brought in to replace it.
Right.
And therefore.
Case in point, Midway Auto Parts, they have a tractor trailer behind there almost all the time.
Correct.
I don't know if it's the same one or not, but you know,
Yeah.
but it's
And
still on wheels.
a lot of cases, Home Depot, Lowe's, home improvement stores, they have trailers that contain pine needles and other such materials. But again, those are on a rotated basis. As they become empty, they bring in new stock, move that trailer out. The trailer is not permanently for that purpose.
Thank you.
Item I, I think we need to strike the last portion of that paragraph where it begins, "and shall be kept clean of all alphanumeric signage in writing." Item J, this is, I have this particular instance in my district where a church has had a container for a long period of time. They use it in their ministry, and once this deadline ends, they will not be able to use it. The only option they will have at that point is to go to the BZA for a variance. So what I would like is, instead of having a drop date of December 31, I'd like to extend it 3 months to March 1, 2016. That gives them a year and a half once this goes into effect, if it passes second reading. Item K, just a few words to strike. Strike equipment. Strike material and replace that with A, which would read, licensed and bonded contractors may use intermodal containers for temporary location of an office and/or a storage structure during construction. That way it doesn't, there's no limitation of what they can be used for.
Yep. Why do you strike equipment? Just curiosity.
Well, because what it's starting to do is define what you can put in there. And what if it's a house, a residence, and they want to put, whatever coming out of a house.
I remember us talking about that.
Yeah. under 613.4 residential zones, B1, it says a temporary portable storage unit shall not be allowed for a period of time exceeding 90 days in any consecutive 12-month period. I believe the intent there, and correct me if I'm wrong, with that is to prevent a property owner basically having permanent storage in a temporary container on site. Is that?
Yes,
that's
that was the intent.
Well, I think what that does, it gets into conflict with what we just talked about with storage of material at a job site. So I think something to this effect needs to be added. If a permitted construction project is underway, then refer to item K in the general section. I don't know if that's proper verbiage.
Well, if we, let me think this through just a minute, because if we, that whole section 613.4 residential zones, you've got section A and B says the placement of a temporary portable storage unit on residentially zoned properties or on properties where the primary use of residential shall be allowed for the limited purpose of loading and unloading household contents subject
To
these additional limitations.
And one is the limitation. The example that I would use is a homeowner in the state of South Carolina can act as his own contractor. And he goes and pulls the proper permits to do his renovation project. He may not be finished with that renovation project in 90 days, but he has a portable storage container on site where he's moved his personal property out. And I just want to make sure that we're not limiting him to 90 days, but to the period of 30 days after the CO is issued.
But by default, wouldn't he be a contractor as opposed to B, which says for the limited purpose of loading and unloading household contents? I mean, I'm just wondering if we have to refer back to K or not.
I just want, if we don't, fine, if it's,
Well, I think it makes a point, I mean, what happens if somebody does look at this and then they say, well, you can only do that for 90 days? You know, I think what he's saying is, what if it takes a person longer than 90 days to finish that? Do we want to spell that out, you know, that homeowner's got more than 90 days if he needs to complete his project?
I want to spell it out.
Okay.
Well, would you add that this is a homeowner in section K then?
Well,
I don't think you have to in K. I mean, it just talks about licensed and
He would be
bonded
considered a
contractors. But
contractor.
yeah.
you,
Okay.
because they would be, well, they wouldn't be licensed. Mr. Driggers, how do we need to get around that? Because if it's a owner that's acting as a contractor, they're not going to be licensed and bonded.
And I think that's the problem that I see in referencing it back to K. You may could add the language that says, that's dealing with the certificate of occupancy or unless a permit issued, tying it to construction project where a permit would be issued.
Okay.
That way, it doesn't have to be a contractor or a licensed contractor. The individual could have pulled a permit. And if they pull a permit, the permit's allowing, by the basis of the permit, they're being allowed to have it for more than the 90 days, but no longer than 30 days after the issuance of the CO.
Right.
So I think that we could take that language of K, we're talking about the use of the permit. I think we could duplicate where it says, if the use of the intermodal container is authorized pursuant to a city building permit, then they're allowed, then it must be removed 30 days after the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
Yes.
We would take that exact same portion of that and paste that over to item 1,
That's good.
B1.
B1. So it would read, a temporary portable storage unit shall not be allowed for a period of time exceeding 90 days in any consecutive 12-month period, unless,
Is authorized pursuant to the city.
exactly, unless if the use of the intermodal container is authorized pursuant to a city building permit, they shall be removed from the premises within 30 working days after issuance of certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
That way it allows for the homeowner not to be a contractor, but have a permit to do work that will take longer than 90 days.
The last question I have.
If I can make clarification on just that portion of it before we move forward. We're saying intermodal container in the section of K, or the holdover, of K. However, we're talking directly about pod.
Yeah.
In A, or in in number 1.
Very
So I think
good.
if we just accept during a period of authorized,
Yeah.
Take the word
I
intermodal
think that's
container
pretty
out.
good, yeah.
Remove the word intermodal container.
yes, sir.
Yep.
The last amendment I'd like to put out there and propose is under 613.6, item D, where it's talking about the sale of the intermodal containers. And we are saying that you can have a business that does that. It would have to be located in an industrial or service zone area. And the way it is written now, that you would have a maximum stacking height of 3 containers. I would like to, I don't know how high you can stack those, but if you're in a service or an industrial area, maybe we should think about going 4 or 5 containers high. I have no issue with the 40-foot and 50-foot setback from the property lines.
Well, we'll deal with the amendment in just a minute when we get to it. You want to say 4 or 5?
5.
5, okay.
Mr. Page, what was your reasoning behind stacking?
Again, a lot of our properties are viewed from major arteries, such as the interstate, such as Vernon Smith Parkway or 101 or 14. And if you've been up 85 or south on 85 around the White Horse Road area, there's a couple of places in there that do sell these containers, and they're 5 and 6 high. And that's quite a blunt, stark reality right there, and that was the reasoning of the proposal for 3.
It was purely aesthetic.
Yes.
It was for the appearance.
The height is 8'6", so we're going to be talking about 42 feet high, basically, would be 5. All right. Anything else, Mr. Harewood?
No, that's all.
Okay. Others? Questions? Comments?
I think you might have covered them all.
You think?
Well, there are benefits from sitting on the very end.
All right, I tell you what, let's, rather than risk, throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this thing because of the work that's been done on it at this point. Let's, any other questions? At this point then, let's entertain Mr. Airwood's amendments individually. So Mr. Airwood, if you want to offer an amendment?
Yes, I'd like to offer, well, let me back up. What did we decide on the International Fire Code? That's defined, and so leaving it there, taking it out, has no effect, correct?
I think we're square on that, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I'd like to offer the First Amendment to this ordinance, item H, to delete. Item H.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
I'd like to offer another amendment, item J, changing the date from December 31, 2015 to March 1, 2016.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
No. Mr. Airwood, do you want to back up and get aye?
Oh, God. Right of it. I would like to make the amendment, item I, that we strike the last part of the sentence that reads, "and shall be kept clean of all alphanumeric signage and writing."
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
No.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
I'd like to offer the next amendment, item K. License, and it should read, licensed and bonded contractors may use intermodal containers for temporary location of an office and/or a storage structure during construction, and then proceed on with the way that that's written.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
I'd like to offer the next amendment under item 1613.4, 1613.4, 613.4, excuse me. B, item 1, and I'm going to have to refer to Mr. Driggers to help me with, I want to add the following language to number 1. What did we decide would be proper?
I think it would read, "A temporary portable storage unit shall not be allowed for a period of time exceeding 90 days in any consecutive 12-month period." And then we would pick up the language off of K that said, "Unless the use of the container is authorized pursuant to a city building permit, they shall be removed from the premises within 30 working days after the issuance of a certificate of occupancy."
As he stated.
Second, as he stated.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
The last amendment I'd like to offer is under item 613.6, D. And said establishment, and I would like for it to read, said establishment shall have a maximum stacking height of 3 containers. And then continue on with the original with a 40-foot setback from side and rear property lines and a 50-foot from the front.
That's what it
has
says.
3.
The way it reads.
No, and then continue on with that, that's what it would say. I just want to change it from 3 containers to 5, and then you just continue on with how it's written.
So the amendment is to make it 5 instead of 3.
Correct.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Have a motion and a second, further discussion. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
No.
Ms. Booker,
No.
Mr. Dumas,
No.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
No.
Mayor Danner.
No. Others?
I had one question on that D1, 61360. You have the NAICS code in there, and I think there are other NAICS code that would qualify for that. Should that be changed to just, to say any qualifying NAICS codes? Because it's just specifying one.
You're where now?
Under 613.60, the establishments for the sale of new, the one we just voted on. I mean, I'm fine if that's the way it should read, but mine was a question more. Because there's a number of NAICS codes, you know, in the NAICS codes directory, and we just specify one. So I'm sure there has to be more in the NAICS codes that would involve containers.
Not a lot of them in there dealing with containers, to be
Okay.
honest about it. As far as resale of those
Of
containers.
them, okay.
Yes, ma'am. After reviewing that, I would recommend maybe striking the 2012 date to the most current edition in there.
That's true too.
Definitely.
That's gonna change next
I
year.
usually try to do that instead of putting a year or specific time standard, and I let that one slip by me.
All we have to do is strike 2012.
12 out.
You don't make an amendment to strike 2012.
Yeah, I'll make an amendment to strike the 2012 out on 613.60.
Have a motion and a second, further discussion. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Others, council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion then to receive ordinance number 21-2014 as amended. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
We've already made a motion. Shouldn't we amend the motion to read as amended?
Yeah, as a point of order, we opened the discussion by accepting a motion to adopt the ordinance. And so we just would need to amend it as amended, if that makes any sense. That was, there was a motion made by Mr. Bettis and a second by Ms. Albert.
To accept it.
To accept it as presented, that open discussion. We would need the original motion and the second to be modified to as amended,
Okay.
and then we would proceed.
All right.
I will amend my original motion to accept the amendment.
That
To
will-
accept the ordinance as amended.
Very good.
Correct. Okay. Who offered the second?
Ms. Judy.
I amended.
We think you did. Tammy thinks you did.
It's all right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept it as amended. Further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Thank you.
We will make those amendments. Those will appear in printed form for second reading.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pace, thank you for your help on that, staff as well, and council for getting us through that. I think this will serve us well in the future. One item of new business this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 22-2014. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Code of Ordinance, Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Technical Codes to add Section 1442, providing for the recovery of administrative and legal fees and costs in the enforcement of all liens opposed against real property. Ms. Helms, I believe you'll lead us through this discussion, please, ma'am.
Sure. Each year, we incur significant costs for cutting grass, cleaning up debris, and demolitions. We are using taxpayer dollars to pay for these services that should be the responsibility of the owner, or should I say respectfully, the irresponsible owner. The codes that we have currently adopted allow us to perform these services and bill the owner for the expenses, including administrative fees and legal fees. We also have the ability to issue summons. If the owner refuses to pay the bill, we are allowed to file a lien on the property. However, these liens can sit dormant for years, so if the property is not sold or refinanced, they're really not doing us any good. This proposed ordinance will allow us to send the bill over to the counties once a year to be collected in the same manner as taxes. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council?
I like that. Yes, I like that.
So now, most of these nuisance properties, they're still paying the taxes on them, even though they're not?
Yes.
Yeah.
What we will have happen, a vacant piece of property or an abandoned house, it's not unusual. Now these are typically owners that are not in our area, but it's not unusual that we will abate those. We'll serve notice. We will continue to abate those problems. And then the property owner each year mails in their property tax. They retain their property, but because there is no transaction of the property, the lien serves no purpose. The provision for collecting liens the same as tax has been on our state books for a while. I was actually involved several years ago with getting some of those changes made. And there, as you may recall, there was a difference of opinion with our respective counties on how that could be applied. One county interpreted that they could do that. One of our other counties interpreted that they could not do that. And over the last couple of years, we've worked very closely with them, and both counties now share our opinion that it is indeed permissible and legal for those to be collected in the same manner as the tax. We have worked with both counties on a process to do that. We feel very comfortable that it is manageable and doable for us to do so. And this now, if they do not pay the lien at the time of the tax, then the property would go to tax sale with the lien.
How's it going to appear on their tax notice? What is it going to say?
It will say, we are proposing that it would say property maintenance lien.
And I can tell you that Greenville County has been doing this for several years. They have a quite larger budget than we do, and their collection rate is in the high 70s. And not to be misleading the council, we know that we'll have some properties that will be on the forfeited land that will go to the Forfeited Land Commission. Some of our liens may be higher than what the property is worth, and we'll have to evaluate.
And we would have to make a decision. It may be more beneficial for us to forgive a lien if someone is interested in purchasing the property at tax sale with the intent of redeveloping the property. Long-term for us, it would be to our advantage. But as the lien holder, we would have the first option to acquire the property.
And our goal would be to work with nonprofit groups or organizations that would like to build affordable housing to go back on these lots and to get them back on the tax rolls.
Outstanding.
Sounds good.
And if you have anybody that wants to call in to complain, you can give them my number. I'd be more than happy to take their call.
That is now a matter of record.
Listen, when he was gone, I took one of his calls when he was gone from somebody come out here and complaining about they towed his car. He won't call back.
Other questions of Ms. Helms? Well, if not, then I'll entertain a motion to receive number 22-2014. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Floor is open for further discussion or questions at this point.
I like the way our staff is always so innovative. I do. I'm always on top of the ball, always.
Did our
Great
pool
job.
project push you over the edge?
It did.
It did.
That was the project that drove this? I figured that, okay.
Good.
It was the project that we said we've got to figure out how to make this work.
Well, I called and asked her several questions about it, and it just seemed like we were never going to recoup the money. I mean, they were just going to continue to pay the taxes long-term, and there's no way we would ever get our money back out of it.
Correct.
So this is a way to do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis, Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have 2 items to consider in executive session, one contractual, one personnel matter. Do I hear a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Okay. A motion, and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, in executive session, we've considered 2 matters, one contractual, one personnel. We've taken no action in regards to either. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Okay.
A motion and a second. Second by Ms. Albert, just as a reminder.
I did that one. I still have my doubts on the others, but it's all right.
We have that too.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.